Welcome everybody to the fastest hour on the internet. You got the C&J Speedway review locked in. You are about to go green flag racing with me. My name is Chris Burns from the Loki and Jabroni Show. You can find us Monday night, except this past week, live streaming on Facebook and Periscope, and also Wednesday nights on iTunes and Google Play Music. And the freshly shaven guy across from me wearing that gorgeous Rusty Wallace hat is my partner in crime on the C&J Speedway review, Corey Huffnagel. Corey, how are you this week?
I'm doing pretty good. I was just up at the race this past weekend in New Hampshire, and all I got to say was great weather, not only Saturday but Sunday. And not only that, it was hot as well. And worst case scenario, I ended up getting sunburnt, which was like not really the best idea. But all in all, it was a lot of fun this weekend.
I cannot sympathize with you for sunburn.
Yes.
Look, anybody who's got a little gimmick phone in their hand, it's the first time I've used that statement here on the show. It's a Loki and Jabroni original. You got a gimmick phone in your hand, you got a weather app. And the weather app is going to tell you, Corey.
Yes.
Again, wear sunscreen, drink water, do your due diligence. You failed.
Yeah.
You failed not only yourself, you failed the city, you failed the C&J Speedway review. For that, I cannot forgive you. But I will forgive you because you put up some great live video. If you guys haven't seen it, go to the Facebook page. Corey was on target this week.
Yes. Yes, I was.
So before we start, if I look a little flush right now, before you and me and Eddie convened for this, I was talking to a friend of mine online, and he's a professional wrestler, and we were reminiscing about the death of Bobby the Brain Heenan, and I'm still a little flush right now. Great guy. If you've never watched professional wrestling, Bobby the Brain Heenan was a class act. They wanted you to hate him, but you couldn't hate him.
Yeah.
And he was a big fan of NASCAR, from what I found out. Bobby Heenan loved NASCAR.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know this until I had the conversation with my friend. So, this week I'm going to tip my hat, and we're going to dedicate this one to the Brain. So, why don't we get started, man? You were in the stands for not only the University of Northern Ohio
170
truck race, but it sounds to me, by what you just said, that you were in the stands for the Cup race as well. Let's talk about the truck race first, which I did get to see a little bit of. We'll move to the Xfinity as usual, and then we'll go to the Cup, because I am fired up about
I can't wait for you to hear that. But, yeah, so anyways, we had the truck guys racing at New Hampshire this past weekend, and Christopher Bell ended up opening the first round with a win at New Hampshire. And like I said, it didn't really surprise me. I mean, because all I know is that now the best part about it is that he doesn't have to worry about going to Talladega and that whole must-win situation kind of thing. But now, if you look at it, you're pretty much going to be looking at guys like Chase Briscoe and Matt Crafton and Cindric and all those other guys. They're going to want to win the race next weekend in Las Vegas, because if any one of those guys goes to Talladega next week, let me tell you, all bets are off. And you think about Talladega, it's one of the most unpredictable tracks on the circuit. You just don't even know what's going to happen. But other than that, the race on Saturday was pretty good. I saw two of the Kyle Busch Motorsports trucks were pretty much dominant during the race. Christopher Bell and also what a good run for Todd Gilliland, ended up finishing in the top 5. Even though he's 17 years old, I still think this kid's got a bright future.
That was surprising, and it looks to be that it was a KBM truck.
Yeah.
So you have good equipment underneath you. If you have good equipment and good skill, you're going to do well. And for this kid to come in third is fantastic. Real quick, I forgot this at the top of the show, and I can see producer Eddie in the box trying to hide from us. Guys, the season's coming to a close in the next 2 months. If you want to get the best price on seats that you can get at a NASCAR race, here's where I want you to go. www.lokiandjabroni.com and hit our affiliate link, Tickets Cheap. It's right at the top of the page. We have other great affiliates, but this is the one I want you guys to focus on. You got a race coming to your area, can't get tickets through the track, ticketscheap.com is the place to go. And we're going to reference them a few times throughout the show.
Definitely.
To Todd Gilliland, I could not believe, I didn't know he was a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
So when I watch I call it the fast forward highlights, You do the DVR bit, and now with a jailbroken Fire Stick, I can watch the race back at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm watching this kid cut through the field, and he was doing really well. And then toward the end of the race is when the announcers stated, hey, here's 17-year-old Todd Gilliland. Whoa, hello. This is a prodigy in the making. One of the fears I had for him in watching this was, are they going to ruin him like they've done other guys that they've put into a car a little bit too soon at an early age? Logano is the exception to the rule. We all know Joey Logano got in a car and he could just go, flat out go. But other youngsters that have come up, I point to Trevor Bayne.
Yeah.
Trevor Bayne has not lived up to the hype. Yes, he has a Daytona 500 underneath him. Yes, he has a semi-consistent ride.
Yeah.
But the only time you hear the name Trevor Bayne is when the caution comes out. Is this same fate going to befall Todd Gilliland in the future, or do you think that maybe, just maybe, he'll have the same horseshoe strap to him that Joey Logano had?
I really don't think so. I mean, I have been watching this kid in the K&M Pro E Series and West Series division, and if you look at his stats this year, on the West side, he only has 6 wins, 8 top 5s, 10 top 10s. On the East side, he's got 4 wins, 5 top 5s, and 13 top 10s. And not to mention, he's actually leading both series in the points right now. And I look at this kid, he's another one of those guys that, that's pretty young, that has a lot of talent. And not only the fact, he's actually the son of David Gilliland as well. So
I heard as much, yes.
So by the time he turns 18, that's when he's able to go full-time racing in the truck series. Now, the question is, where do you think he's going to go for a team? It depends on, what team opens up, and says, we want to get this kid full-time, and and it also depends on sponsorship as well. But other than that, I think this kid's got a really bright future. I think he's going to win a lot of races and a lot of championships in the next coming years.
Well, that would be really great. And David Gilliland, as much as he was always thought of as a lower-end guy, he was competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. His best finish in the Cup Series was 26th. But when you go to some of the lower, and I hate saying lower series.
Right.
But let's be honest, it's a tiered system. He has an Xfinity win. He has no wins on the Truck Series. But when you go further down the line into different series, David Gilliland is a competitor.
Yeah.
And I remember some time ago, I want to say it was maybe 2013-ish, he was in the lead for a lot of one of these particular races. He looked like he was going to come home with it. Unfortunately, bad luck befell, and I think it was Talladega, because it was the big one. And anybody who knows Talladega knows the big one. Gilliland led a good portion of that race. Unfortunately, the wreck takes him out. He could have won that race. He wouldn't have Chris Bueschered the race. No offense to Chris Buescher. A win's a win. But he wasn't going to rain delay his way into a win, competing and doing rather well at the time. So we know he comes from a good background.
Yeah.
But a good background doesn't always equate to success. Because for every Dale Earnhardt Jr., for every Chase Elliott, you have, I'll throw Kyle Petty in the middle.
Yeah.
You have Davey Allison was way up here too. His untimely death robbed us of a great, great race car driver back in 1993. But they're just, being the son of a competitive race car driver or a baseball player, whatever sport, doesn't guarantee you success. So I hope the best for Todd Gilliland. I really do. I think that if he can keep his mind straight and his focus, where it needs to be, he's going to do well.
I think so too. And not only that, I also looked on the news. I think it was either yesterday or today. So I guess the 51 truck was penalized because I guess they had some rear cooling assembly in the truck. And I think this was probably the same thing that happened with Kyle Larson at Kentucky back a couple months ago. And I guess what happened was Kevin Bono Mannion was fined, I think, $5,000 or so.
Okay.
Yep.
That's nothing to disparage Todd Gilliland over. I always say it to people, especially in the case of number 48 on the Cup Series. It's not the driver that makes these adjustments. the crew and the crew chief, they make these adjustments.
Right.
You can't blame the Jimmy Johnsons or the Todd Gillens or the Kevin Harvicks or Cripes. How many people got penalized this weekend in the Cup race? Before, it was during practice, I believe. You put that up on the page.
Yeah, and then there was also one story that I guess Logano was sat on pit road for like the whole entire practice, and there were some fans that were kind of questioned by that. They were saying like, why is Logano on pit road, like, for a whole amount of practice time? And then somebody said that, if Logano, is penalized and, is not going to be able to practice, they should have just parked the car and just be done for the day.
Nobody knows sometimes what NASCAR is going to do with their penalties. We talked about it last week with the 0.6 miles per hour.
Yeah.
It's just, I think sometimes they make the rules and then they get heartburn and they burp and they change a rule, or they decide that this rule is enforceable, but this rule isn't. Again, consistency of rules is something that people, fans, drivers have argued and cried for and demanded for 20 years.
Right.
And we're not getting it. We're still not getting it. And they won't answer for it. Well, we have to adapt to the times and yada, yada, whatever. Make the rules consistent. Never in the middle of a baseball game or a football game or any other major sport. Let's try MMA. My friend Blair Tugman is an MMA fighter, fights on live television for Bellator. Cracking some guy's skull, and the referee stops the fight and says, wait a minute, we've changed the rules. You can't punch him in the eye anymore. Well, you can't change the rules mid-season, mid-race, mid-game. Right. Derek Jeter, you can't throw the ball to first. You have to throw it to center field first and then throw it to first. There has to be consistency across the board.
Yeah.
But there weren't a lot of penalties coming out of the Truck Series this weekend. What was your biggest surprise from the Truck Series being there in the stands in New Hampshire?
So one driver that I'm going to have to point out is definitely the 52 truck of Stuart Friesen. So in case if anybody doesn't know, so he's a driver that's based out of Ontario, and he had 6 starts in the Truck Series in 2016. This year, I'm looking at his standings right now. It's only like he only has 2 top 5s and 2 top 10s. And just remember this, he finished second at the dirt race at Eldora a couple months ago. And I was actually posting on Instagram a while back, and I was posting predictions of, who would think would win the truck race at Eldora. And one person pointed out saying Stuart Friesen. So at that point I said, okay, who the heck is Stuart Friesen? Because it was kind of like an out of the blue type of thing. Like I didn't really know what it was, but he actually proved me wrong that night.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because what I didn't know was that, I didn't know that Stuart Friesen was one of those guys that know how to run on dirt. And he actually ran a really good race until he got passed by Matt Crafton with a couple of laps to go. But honestly, I have to tell you, Stuart Friesen finishing in the top 5 at New Hampshire, I thought that was a big surprise in my book.
Well, sometimes you have, in the trucks especially, you have to run New Hampshire almost like a dirt track. You're going to go full bore down the straights, hard brake going into the turn. You have to ease it out coming out the peak. And when you get to the center of the turn, that's when you get back in the gas.
Yeah.
Much like a dirt track. So to hear that Stuart Friesen is a genius on dirt, and he did well in New Hampshire, no surprise there. If this kid catches on, he's going to have to learn to work the 1.5 miles. He's going to have, obviously, Martinsville would never be a problem for him.
No.
New Hampshire obviously wasn't a problem for him. Dover shouldn't be a problem if he ever goes there. But what's he going to do in a truck in Daytona?
The only thing is that, when you race at Daytona and Talladega, you just never know, where you're going to be, near the end. I would say for him, since the guys are going to Talladega in a couple of weeks, I would be very surprised if he runs in the top 2. Other than that, probably pull off a win. But I don't know. I'd probably say, it depends, what suits his racing style or so forth. But, other than that, I think if Stewart wants to win the race at Talladega in a few weeks, he just has to be there right at the end. Because, like I said, Talladega is just so unpredictable. You just can't tell, what's going to happen. There's just so many different scenarios that, it could take you either out of the race or you could just put you, up front whatsoever.
Right. And if any of you guys are interested in going to Talladega for these races, once again, shameless plug helps us gain money for production costs. www.lokeyandjabroni.com. Click on the Tickets Cheap affiliate. No hidden fees, no extra charges. The difference is Tickets Cheap will kick back just a little bit of your purchase to us to cover production costs, not only here, but on the Loki and Jabroni show.
Yes.
Always a good time. Check out our other affiliates as well. Same great shopping, no hidden charges. And especially for something like Tickets Cheap, concerts, baseball, football, NASCAR, theater, what have you, it's all there.
Yeah.
I wish I'd have known about Tickets Cheap before they became an affiliate. It would have been great.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm going to go back to Christopher Bell because he was on both of our lists last week as someone who was going to come home high in the standings. Obviously, he wins the race. Is he locking himself in to a championship a la Martin Truex, Kyle Larson, or is he coming out of the box too strong and we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop?
I think he's got a really good chance of making it to the Final Four this year because if you look at it, they've just been so dominant when it comes to the mile and a halves this year because that's just pretty much their strong suit. Now, you go to Las Vegas, this weekend, he doesn't have to win the race even though he already advances, but now you look at to the next round, I really think Christopher Bell has an excellent shot at making the Final Four because if you look at it, you got Martinsville, Texas, and Phoenix. And if you look at it, you go to Martinsville. He was pretty dominant there in the spring, finished, I think, in the top 5 whatsoever. Then you go to Texas. He ended up finishing, I believe, he actually won the race back in June. And then I would say Phoenix, he had a really good run there back last November, finished in the top 5. And then, of course, Homestead, he finished in the top 8 or so. Yeah, honestly, this kid, I think, has a really good shot at making it to the Final Four, and I think this is his championship to lose as of right now. And I could say, out of all the other 7 drivers that are in the Truck Series playoffs, the only way that these guys are going to have to win this championship is they're going to have to go through Christopher Bell.
All right, so let's go over the points real quick as I get them in. We're just going to go with the playoff guys.
Yep.
Bringing up the rear in 8th is John Hunter Nemechek, 69 points back. Chase Briscoe in 7th, 65 points back. Kaz Gralla, 62 points back in 6th. Austin Cindric, 57 points back in 5th. Ben Rhodes, 50 points back in 4th. Matt Crafton, 41 points back in 3rd. Johnny Sauter, 40 points back in 2nd. And, of course, Christopher Bell is the leader. Now, let's go back to those points real quick. The difference between Bell and Sauter is 40 points.
Yep.
Your average truck race starts 30 to 34 drivers.
I think it's 36.
Christopher Bell could start the truck next week, turn a lap, park it, let the other guys run the 150, 175 laps, and still maintain the lead. That's why I asked the question, is this guy a lock for the championship? Himself such a cushion by winning this week's race.
I would say he's pretty much a lock, no doubt about it.
For the championship?
Yep. I think he's got a really great shot at going to the Final Four, and I actually have him as my champion this year.
Okay. So you've done your bracketology. Very nice.
Yes.
So let us move on. This weekend, Kentucky was the home of the Xfinity race. We had the visitmyrtlebeach.com 300. And I don't think either of us had lock or our sleeper, Tyler Reddick, winning this race.
I didn't have him either, but all I could just say was on Saturday night, that kid had a really good car throughout the whole entire night. And I'd probably say, near the end of the race, I saw a couple of guys were taking some different pit strategies. I think some took tires and then others took maybe 4 tires and fuel whatsoever. And there was one point in the race where Reddick went out to a 10-second lead, 11-second lead. And I'm thinking where's the second place guy? And then I found out that Brendan Poole ended up finishing second. So if you look at in the top 10, so you basically have a few drivers that finished in the top 10, and then you have I don't know, let's say maybe 4 that are outside the top 10. But actually one driver that I really want to point out that had a really good car on Saturday was Cole Custer.
Yeah, he looked really good this weekend. I didn't see Cole coming as a contender for the win, but he was certainly competitive, and any top 5 is a good top 5.
Yep.
You're building those points. You're moving up the ladder. When we get to the standings, I'm sure it will show. One of the people I was disappointed in and I'm kind of in shock, and I want to go back. Is a 23rd place finish for Dakota Armstrong.
Yeah.
I just he wasn't a factor the entire race.
Yeah, he just
Kid.
it just wasn't, and not only that, I just saw. I think yesterday I heard that JGL had to part ways with Dakota just yesterday. So now that pretty much leaves Dakota without a ride. But I also heard that they're going to continue on running the 24 car for JGL for the remainder of the season with drivers like Dylan Lupton and others whatsoever. Or so
It would have been easier, perhaps, to take that news if he wasn't as close as he was to making the playoff.
Right.
But the fact that JGL has decided to move on from Dakota Armstrong, is that a knock on Armstrong, or is that a knock on JGL for not having enough faith in a driver?
I would probably say it's a knock on the team, because if you look at it, he was close on making the playoffs. I mean, he was like, I don't know, maybe a few points out of the top 12 or so forth. But I would probably say if I was JGL, I would have just let him go like at the end of the season, probably like not like before like the season's over whatsoever. I mean, I don't like it when teams do that, but if it was because of a financial issue or what other different issue whatsoever, I guess it's pretty much their call whatsoever.
This reminds me of Jeff Burton toward the end of his run with Roush.
Yeah.
They pull a sponsorship from the car. He's driving around in a black and white number 99. Everybody knows he's a lame duck. He goes on television and says, if you're going to fire me, fire me.
Yeah.
He knew when they pull a sponsorship, you're pretty much a lame duck.
Right.
But instead, they let Jeff Burton do what Jeff Burton does, and that's race. The next season, he's with RCR, and he comes out of the box winning races, basically giving a huge middle finger to Roush Racing, saying, you know what, you made the wrong decision. Did they, though? No, because Carl Edwards turned out to be a really fantastic race car driver. Not having Carl Edwards out there this year has been a real disappointment. Love me some Carl Edwards. Never a favorite of mine, but he's always fun to watch. But, yeah, to hear that Dakota Armstrong lost his ride with, 8 races left to go? Yeah, that speaks poorly to the organization, not to Dakota Armstrong.
Right.
So what was the biggest surprise for you in this race?
So I'd probably say the biggest surprise would have to be the 20-car Ryan Preece. Now, even though he skipped the modified race, I mean, let me just tell you, after finishing second at New Hampshire, winning in Iowa, and then finishing in the top 5 in Kentucky, I got to tell you what, I really think he deserves to get a top ride, probably either next year or whatever in the years to come. But I got to tell you, like, for him to drive on a 1.5 mile racetrack and finish in the top 5, I thought that was incredible.
You know what I'm going to try to do maybe during the off season? We'll use the Twitter machine and all of our resources to maybe try to get Ryan Preece to do a 3-way hangout here to record it for C&J Speedway Review, because this kid has got it. He's a favorite amongst a lot of people in this area. I know he came up through this area. I heard great things about him going up to New Hampshire. People were saying, watch out for Ryan Preece, watch out for Ryan Preece. We sat right next to each other through that Xfinity race, and I was just marveled at how this kid was able to cut through the traffic like it was nothing and work his way up to a second-place finish.
It's incredible.
And when you go back, and I'm going to go back now on my little gimmick phone, deal with it. When you consider, and I said it to you after that race, when you consider he finished second, former Cup Series champion, 2 spots behind him was a Cup Series contender this year. 3 spots behind him was a former Cup Series champion. When you look through this list and see the guys he finished ahead of and the guy he nearly beat in that race, this kid's got something.
And like I said, he's got a lot of talent too. I mean, I've been really impressed. Like, no matter what you put him in, I mean, the modifieds, he's just been on fire this year. And not only that, the Xfinity Series, he's been really surprising this season.
Okay, so we move on to the ISM Connect 300. Before I move on, I'm going to put that up there. I don't want you to see my face right now. After a big wreck, Kyle Busch inherits the lead and goes on to win. The wreck took out contender Martin Truex Jr., although he battled back. It took out Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
It took out Austin Dillon. But you know what? When you start it, you may as well go to the garage with everybody else. It took out Dale Earnhardt Jr. It took out Kurt Busch.
Yep.
That wreck. Okay, here comes the rant. I'm not waiting.
All right. Let me hear it.
When they interviewed Dillon, Austin, what happened? They interviewed Harvick first.
Yep.
He had been complaining for 20 laps. I'm watching the Falcons game on one TV.
Yep.
The race on another TV. I've got Harvick's scanner in my ear. Harvick's complaining about a vibration in the right front for 20 laps. I need to come in. And the spotter and the crew chief are both saying, look, we're expecting something soon. We're hearing chatter. You're probably going to get a caution. As the laps go on, like, okay, 3 laps to go till the end of the segment 2. Just hold out. We are on the final lap of segment 2.
Yep.
And Austin Dillon decides he's going to take his revenge from which I think was the Bristol when Harvick moved him over and put him in the wall. He decides to take his revenge during this race.
Yep.
First of all, Austin, if you ever see this, your granddad is. You're not an Earnhardt. You're not a Wallace. You're not a Petty. You're not an Elliott. You are Austin freaking Dillon. Your granddaddy happens to own 3 race cars. Your granddaddy happens to be the guy who owned the race car of probably the most iconic driver of the last 40 years.
Yep.
Your granddaddy gave you and your brother your jobs.
Yep.
Whether or not you're good, it doesn't matter because you're Austin Dillon. You're Richard Childress's grandbaby.
Mm-hmm.
When he won earlier in the year, I said, okay, maybe this is the coming out party. What has he done since? Nothing. Austin Dillon is a joke. There is nothing that he had to gain from turning the 4 car, taking out no less than 5 contenders who were challenging for that win, and basically screwing up what, we haven't looked at the standings yet. And again, we'll have to go back. We didn't do the Xfinity standings for the championship yet. And I apologize for that because I'm just so freaking hot right now. I put a rant up. I was hot. I was angry. I'm still angry. If I ever saw Austin Dillon and his alt-right haircut with his hipster clothes and all that BS, I'd smack him dead in the mouth. Austin Dillon has as much business on a racetrack as I do. He should buy a ticket, watch a race, and learn how this is done. I have no use for Austin Dillon. Rant over. My apologies. Fuck Austin Dillon. And that's the first time that cuss word will ever be used on this show. Anyway, going back to the race, Casey Kane was caught up in it. I mean, look, just the names alone. 36th, 35th, 34th. Two championship contenders and the most popular driver on the circuit. Casey Kane, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kevin Harvick. Accidents are part of racing. We get it. Rubbing's racing. If you've ever watched Days of Thunder, you've heard it. Everybody loves to quote that line. Yes, rubbing is racing. Turning a guy for the sake of revenge because he did it to you once before. Boo-hoo-hoo. Get over it. Win the race on your own. You don't need to be crashing people on purpose.
Right.
I don't get it. I just don't get it, and I'm going to go back to the standings for the Xfinity. I'm going to get over this, and we're going to move on. And I apologize to all of you who had to sit through that. But you want the straight dope, you're going to get it here.
Yeah.
Here's the Xfinity Series standings, then we'll talk about the Cup race other than the fact that Austin Dillon robbed us of a great finish. Jeremy Clement sits in 12th, 37 points back. Mike Lynette, 11th, 35 points back. Blake Cook, 10th, 32 points back. Brendan Gaughan, 31 points back in 9th. Ryan Reed, 8th place, 23 points back. Matt Tifft, 21 points back in 7th. Brendan Poole, 6, 10 points back. Now, see, there's a great disparity between 6 and 7, which is why I think the top 6 are going to be the top 6 going forward. There's not going to be too much jumping around.
Yeah.
William Byron, 5th, drops a little bit. He's 6 points out. Keep that in mind. He's in 5th, 6 points out.
Yeah.
Daniel Hemrick, 5 points out in 4th. Elliott Sadler, 2 points out in 3rd. Cole Custer is in a virtual tie, but still ranked 2nd. And Justin Allgaier is currently leading the Xfinity standings as the leader. Based on, obviously, he had a great finish this weekend. We go back to that. He was the 3rd place car.
Yep.
Ran a hell of a race. So he really put himself in a good position. Going forward, do you see Justin Allgaier, whose career looks like a heartbeat monitor, goes up and down, up and down? Can you see Justin Allgaier holding on to this momentum?
I can see him holding on to this momentum probably maybe towards the end of the round of 8. Because if you look at it, like, I do expect the junior motorsports cars to run pretty well, throughout the next round and so forth. But if you go to the round of 12, I would probably say there's not going to be a lot of moving around, for like the 8th spot. I mean, quite frankly, like, I could pretty much see Gahn, Cook, and Net and Clements out because, those guys haven't really done anything. They didn't really do that as much, this past Saturday. But I would probably say, like, it'll be very interesting, once we get to the last race in the round of 8. And then that will be pretty much, that race, to decide who's going to make it to the Final Four in the Xfinity Series at Homestead. And quite frankly, I think with all these 12 drivers, if they're going to win the championship, they're going to have to go through junior motorsports, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Good call. All right, let's go back to the Cup race. I've had my rant. What did you take away from the Cup race on Sunday?
So I would probably say that Kyle Busch rebounded after he had a bad week in Chicago. Like I said, he speeded on pit road, and then he had too many men over the wall last week. I gotta say, this team rebounded very quick, and not only that, they also advanced to the round of 12. And like I said, this team is also going to be a one to watch. Once we get to the round of 12, 8, and 4 whatsoever. But then you go to the big crash that was like right near the end of stage 2. I mean, I honestly, I didn't even know how Kyle Busch snuck by that wreck, but, he pretty much referenced, Days of Thunder. He said, if you go through the smoke, you never know where it's going to lead to. But
that is a great point because we were watching that, and I've got the scanner in my ear, and after the crash, and Harvick's done MF and everybody, I switched over to the radio feed.
Right.
Because I have that on my phone, too, and they're referencing Days of Thunder. Go to the high side, blow through the smoke, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
And they went to Kyle Busch's scanner, and that's what they said. It was funny as hell. But a lot of guys made it through that wreck. Kenseth was one of them. Kyle was one of them. Keselowski was one of them. Martin Truex he had fallen back for purposes, whatever his purposes were. But he and Harvick were top 10 cars when that wreck happened. Austin Dillon was already lapped. There was no reason for if you're battling for a position. Yeah, Austin Dillon, I'll buy it. You move Harvick out of the way. You do what you have to do. Rubbin's racing. You're a lapped car. Move to the side like the rules dictate. With the front car, try to get by the front car. Past that, I'm not going to say it out loud again.
Right.
But he took out a lot of contenders. Truex never really recovered. He finished 5th, but he had heavy damage to the left rear. Kyle Busch was climbing. Kyle Busch was leading that last segment. Oh no, who was leading?
So it was basically
was it
a
Truex
battle.
or Larson?
Well, it was actually Truex that was leading right before the end of stage 2, and then right when that accident came out, that's when two of those guys, they said, okay, where's the wreck going to happen? So Truex ended up getting hit from somebody. I don't know who it was. And then once the wreck was over, then you saw Kyle Busch sneak up right on the high side past Harvick and those guys, and then Kyle was able to get away in stage 2. But if you go to the replay, and I've actually saw this during the race, it was kind of blurry like this to whether or no, if Austin kind of tapped the 4 car. But if I would have saw a better replay, then I would probably determine he kind of went to the bottom or whatsoever and, and all that. But what actually kind of hit me was If you saw Harvick's interview between, NBCSN and then PRN whatsoever, on the NBCSN side, he said, well, I don't even know what happened. Like, I tried to go to the right, and then it was basically too late and all that
Right.
other
I
stuff
didn't
and
hear
so
that.
forth.
I heard the radio feed because we
Yeah.
had the football game going.
Right. And then pretty much on the PRN side, it was kind of a different story. So he basically told him, like, oh, the 3 just tapped us.
Oh, by the time he sees it, by the time he goes to PRN or MRN, even the voice of NASCAR,
Yes.
he's seen it. I'm drumming up the wreck now on my phone, and again, multiple angles. This is from NASCAR's point of view. Once I get past this 4-wheel buggy gimmick here, you gotta watch the sponsors. You gotta watch the sponsors every time. Make them money. John Deere, God love them. Okay, so yeah, Dylan plows through Harvick.
Yeah.
The 41 goes right into the 4. You see the 78 catch some damage. You see Kyle Busch's great movement by Kyle Busch. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see some of these cars to get through. The 48 gets through. The 42 gets through. A lot of guys go to the low side because by this time the high side is pretty well blocked up. Yeah. Again, 78's got his left rear banged in. Logano caught a little damage. I'm trying to see here who that is. The 17 looks good. 13 looks good. But there's no reason for that. And as you watch, the 33 of Jeffrey Earnhardt plows into the 41, which plows into the 4. Yeah. Again, now you're not just turning Harvick to turn Harvick. You are claiming by my count, 6 different cars in this accident that were running well.
Yeah.
6 cars in Jeffrey Earnhardt, let's be honest. There's no need for it.
I mean, but like I said, now that it's playoff time, you're going to see a lot of these drivers take a lot of risks and a lot of chances and whatsoever. And hey, if you're running second and if you need to win the race, to advance, that's what these guys are going to want to do. And like I said, the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of drama and a lot of excitement when it comes to the playoffs. And it should be pretty interesting to see what's going to happen in the next round. And not only that, we got the Final Four at Homestead.
Right, and here's my problem with that notion, and I'm not telling you you're wrong. We all know that you're going to do what you have to do to win the race.
Yeah.
Austin Dillon is in the final 16. We have run one race until 4 drop or 3 drop.
I see.
Austin Dillon did not come out of that smelling like a rose. He finished 19th. He started a wreck. He finishes not only 19th, but he finishes behind Danica Patrick.
Yeah.
Whatever. He basically took himself out. Now, if we go to the standings real quick, and I know it's a tad bit early, but I do want to bring this up. Dillon took Kurt Busch, and now Kurt Busch is in 15th.
Yeah.
Austin Dillon's in 13th. He is below the cutoff line. He's in a virtual tie with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. for the 12th spot, but Stenhouse, with 2 wins, goes above him and would take that spot. If the round cut started now, Stenhouse gets the spot, and Dillon gets asked out because Austin Dillon decided to be a petulant little baby and do what he did and take out 5 contenders.
Yeah.
The entire, besides Truex and Larson and Busch, who did not move, Keselowski didn't move either. You had a shakeup. Hamlin moved up. Kenseth moved up. Johnson moved up. Blaney moved up. Elliott moved up. Harvick moved down. I mean, you just basically took this entire thing and threw it on its ear.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a little more old school. Again, I was never a huge Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan. He would turn his mother on the last lap to win a race, but let's remember that phrase, the last lap.
Yeah.
That's when you make your money. Not on lap 153 or not at the end of segment 2 now that we're in segment racing, which, by the way, I love segment racing.
I love it.
I think it's great. Somebody asked me at the beginning of the season what I thought, and I hadn't seen lap 1 yet. I'm like, oh, let's wait. Let's see how it works. And obviously it works great. It's like your old school hometown racing.
Yep.
Heat racing at its best. And if there's anybody that's proven that, it's obviously Truex, Busch, Larson.
Yeah.
The
Without a
more
doubt.
the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. I'm done talking about Austin Dillon. What was your biggest surprise coming out of New Hampshire?
So I'd probably say the biggest surprise, I would have to say, the guys that got caught up in that big wreck, guys like Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch. And, looking back to last week, I said, okay, Harvick, runs pretty well at New Hampshire. He's won 2 races over there before. The next thing the next week he gets caught up in the big wreck. And if you look at the points, he's down in 10th, I think about 80 points to the good or so. But I would probably say that's probably my big surprise. But my second one has to be Martin Truex Jr. because how he got in that big wreck with only left rear damage whatsoever, and then to come back to finish in the top 5, I thought that surprised me. But then that also showed me that, this team will battle back, no matter if they get into a wreck, if they have a problem on pit road whatsoever, this team will rally back and they'll finish in the top 5. And that's one thing I was kind of amazed about.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that, let's take away the fact that Martin Truex has been lights out all year.
Yeah.
Let's take away the fact that Martin Truex, for the last couple years, been a force. It's not a track where aerodynamics and downforce mean a lot. It's a flat 1 mile track.
Yeah.
So you get a little damage here, you get a little damage there, you get a little roughed up. As long as your engine, your transmission, your chassis, everything's working in sync, your body damage isn't going to matter on a 1 mile flat track. Had this been Martinsville, he'd have still finished in 5th. If this was Talladega, we're talking about a 31st place finish for Martin Truex Jr. Yeah. Having said that, the surprise for me wasn't that he ran well. The surprise for me was that he finished in the top 5 with that damage after that wreck.
Yeah.
My surprise was the guy that the only reason you heard his name was because he snuck through the wreck. Jimmy Johnson coming in 14th.
Yeah.
Here's a guy that every week you hear his name. Every week he's battling. A couple weeks ago he started at the rear. He battled back to a 4th place finish. He's just a guy you have to watch for every single week, whether you love him or you hate him. And as many people love him, many people hate him. You could point to Joey Logano starting near the rear of the field and coming up to 10th, but Jimmy Johnson started 12th, finished 14th. He basically hovered in that realm the entire race. And for a 7-time champion to be a non-factor in a playoff race, that was surprising to me.
Yeah.
So as we move forward, we are going to go to the schedule. We will start with our friends at the Camping World Truck Series, NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race at Las Vegas. We don't even get a name for this race. That's what we got, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series race at Las Vegas. Yes. Give me your Stone Cold pick and give me your sleeper.
So my Stone Cold pick, and I was actually giving myself a few days to think about this, but I would probably say my Stone Cold for Saturday is going to be the 29 at Chase Briscoe, because if you look at it, he's been pretty good when it comes to the 1.5 mile racetracks this season. And actually remember this, the last time we were on a 1.5 mile racetrack, he ended up finishing 2nd at Chicago. And if you look at Las Vegas, it's kind of a similar racetrack, maybe to like Chicago or Kansas whatsoever. But I really think, now that he's in 6th in the points right now, I would have to say that, he's going to be my favorite to win on Saturday. And then my sleeper pick definitely would have to be Ben Rhodes, because like I said, he's done good on the 1.5 miles. I still remember the race at Kansas where he should have won, but he ended up like 7 laps with a blown engine whatsoever. So I really think, and also he's another one in the playoffs that, that could deserve to get a win, before we end up going to Talladega for the elimination race. Because let's be honest, nobody wants to go to Talladega in a must-win situation mode. And like I said earlier, you just never know. You just never know what's going to happen, and it's just so unpredictable that, you could be either leading or you could get caught up in a big wreck, anything. But those are my picks for this weekend.
Well, I've avoided picking this guy as my lock as long as we've been doing this, but I can't ignore him any longer. My Stone Cold lock is Christopher Bell. Don't see him losing. He's been dominant. There's just too much to look at. Much like a Martin Truex, much like a Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, in my opinion, in Las Vegas this weekend wins the race. My sleeper is also Ben Rhodes, but and I have it written down. I want you guys to see. I've been doing my homework. I'm writing these down now, so next week we can go through these. My other sleeper pick, just because he's trying once again to put himself in the Truck Series to see what he can do. I'd love to see Travis Pastrana win this race.
I do too.
The extreme icon, Pastrana, do something with four wheels rather than two.
Yeah.
Past that, I really don't see anybody in this list that I would look at as the favorite. Crafton has fallen off. It's sad. Kaz has been doing well, but he needs that one breakthrough.
Yep.
But again, he can start the car, he can start the truck, take a lap, park it, and still be in first at the end of the race. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but that's how dominant he is. So for the first time, I'll pick Christopher Bell as my Stone Cold lock.
Yep.
Moving forward to Dover, one of my favorite tracks. I was there last year. The Use Your Melon and Drive Sober 200. Oh, how odd that is to say right now. Give me your Stone Cold lock and give me your sleeper.
So I'm looking at the entry list, and you got a few Cup drivers that'll be in this race on Saturday. So my Stone Cold lock is going to be an Xfinity guy, and one driver that I'll be looking at on Saturday is going to be Cole Custer in the 00. And, he's coming off a top 5 finish at Kentucky. He should have won the race. He kind of faded back near the end. And actually, I was looking at his results a few days ago, and he finished 4th back in the race in June. So I thought, okay, if he finished in the top 5, I think he's got a really good shot to win. So that's going to be my favorite for Saturday. My sleeper pick, I would have to go with, I would say maybe probably Daniel Hemrick. I mean, he's ran pretty decent this year, and he's one of the guys that races for Richard Childress, and he's been consistent. But the only thing is with him, I need to see more. I really want to see more because this kid's got talent. He could have won pretty much both of the road course races at Mid-Ohio and Road America, but other than that, I would probably say he could get a good finish, and I could see him going to the round of 8.
Okay. I'm going to go a different route. I'm as much as I hate doing this, I'm going to take a Cup driver as my Stone Cold lock. Daniel Suarez needs a win in some sort of series. Is not only his awesome rookie standing, because right now I believe Eric Jones may overtake him as the Monster Energy Cup Series Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
So Suarez needs something to build his confidence. I think the Xfinity race at Dover is the place he's going to do it. My sleeper pick is Brennan Poole.
Yep.
I think Brennan Poole needs a win to stay relevant in this playoff bracket. He's not exactly lighting the world on fire. Playoff grid real quick. He's in 6th, and he's 10 points back. But then again, we're talking about a series where the difference between 1st and 10th is only 32 points.
Yep.
It's not that great. One bad race by Allgaier, Custer, Sadler, Hemrick, and you're talking about a new leader. If Brennan Poole wants to set himself apart and go for this championship, he needs to win this race, and he needs to win it in very convincing, dramatic fashion.
I would say so.
So those are my picks.
Yep.
There you can see them. Now moving on, we go to the Apache Warrior 400 presented by Lucas Oil at Dover for the Cup Series. And I'm going to start because I changed the rules a little bit. I went the Corey Huffnagel route. I have 2 Stone Cold locks. Both guys are former winners at Dover. Both guys are guys that it seems when it comes to that track have a horseshoe up their butt. I'm going with Matt Kenseth and Ryan Newman as my locks. Every time I go to that track, and I've been to that track easily a half dozen times, it's either Matt Kenseth or Ryan Newman. I've not seen anybody else win at Dover. If that sounds strange, it should be. I don't know. Maybe it's me sitting there that they do well. I can't answer for it. But those are the guys I pick. My sleeper is going to be Eric Jones. He's going to set his mark going into next season. A win could definitely secure the Rookie of the Year in the Monster Energy Cup Series. But Eric Jones needs something, some sort of momentum. He can't just rely on top fives and top tens, go into next season and say, look, I'm a contender. Because Kyle Petty had a season like that in his rookie year back in 1861. And now he's kind of sitting in a booth with 8,000 hair ties in his ponytail. Jones wants to solidify himself next year weekend. That's my sleeper.
So, I'm going to pick two, and I'm going to be going a different route. So,
two of my
So two of my drivers that I'm going to be keeping my eye on, and these are going to be the ones that you're going to have to watch on Sunday. So one, I'm going to have Jimmy Johnson. The other one, I'm going to have Kyle Larson. Because if you think about it, the race back in June, these were two of the cars that were pretty much near the front, either leading or running in second whatsoever. And I actually go back to the race in June. Larson had a really good shot to win. Had that late caution not come out, he could have had a shot, but, and then on the restart, he just couldn't get his tires warmed up whatsoever. Then you go to Jimmy Johnson. 11 times he has won at Dover. And honestly, all I could just say is don't count out the 48 when they go to the Monster Mile. I mean, they know how to get that track done. I mean, they know how to win there. And quite frankly, I could probably see him, winning at tracks like Dover, Charlotte, and Martinsville, like they always do every year. So those are going to be two of my favorites that I'm going to be watching for. My sleeper, it's probably going to be the guys that are going to be running between 12th and 16th in the points. Because if you think about it, the race on Sunday, it's going to be between, the guys that are near the cutoff and then the guys that are below the cutoff line. And honestly, all I could just say is it's going to be very interesting. But if I would have to pick one right now, I would have to say Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Because everybody on NASCAR America or wherever it was, they were saying that, Ricky did pretty well there back in the spring and all that other stuff whatsoever. And actually, Ricky actually hit the wall back on Sunday, and there was another team that, recovered as well. So, I mean, I'm going to keep my eye on him on Sunday and see how he does. And even if he makes the round of 12, it's going to be very interesting to see how he does in that round. And, even if he makes the round of 12, everybody's going to say, you know what, he's going to win Talladega because he's already won two of the restricted play tracks this season. So that's going to be my sleeper for this weekend.
And maybe that's the only reason I'm going to question it, because his two wins did come at some of the bigger tracks. He had Daytona and he had Talladega.
Yep.
If our picks were to work in conjunction, Stenhouse wins. Let's say Ryan Newman comes in second. You're now talking about McMurray moving down, Austin Dillon moving down. Where's the card? No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
You're just talking about, once again, a complete shakeup going into the round of 12. Dover's a place where Kevin Harvick is notorious for being in the top 5. It's a place where last year when I went, Chase Elliott did extremely well.
Yeah.
Stenhouse was a top 15 car last year when I was there. Started a wreck that took out 18 cars on the restart on that race. But again, Harvick was one of the ones that bounced back and did rather well that race. Again, we go back to these mile tracks like New Hampshire, like Dover. It's not an aerodynamic track. You just have to have good equipment underneath. If the body's a little beat up, you can still collect some speed going down into the corners. That's where they make their money if your car is damaged. You can get through the corners okay. That backstretch speed isn't going to mean a lot unless you have 4 or 5 cars around you trying to get that position back.
Right.
And once again, if you are headed to Dover this weekend, don't forget www.lokiandjabroni.com. Hit our affiliate link. It's called Tickets Cheap. No extra charges. They kick back just a little bit of the money to help us cover production costs on this show as well as the Loki and Jabroni show. Final thoughts on the week that was and the week that will be.
So my final thoughts, it's definitely going to be very interesting on Sunday to see who's able to advance to the round of 12 and who's going to be eliminated. And, I'm going to say this again. It's the race on Sunday. It's definitely going to be the guys that are between 10th and below the cutoff. And, and there's going to be a lot of moving around whatsoever. And quite frankly, it's going to be very interesting to see how this is all going to play out. But, as long as you have a good car and as long as you don't get into an accident or have bad pit stops whatsoever, I think these guys have a shot. But for the guys that are below that cutoff line right now, they're going to have to win the race on Sunday to advance. So this is going to be that race where, now it's go time. You have to give it all you got. And, if you get eliminated, then you have to focus on next year. So I really think Sunday's going to be very exciting. And not only that, the Xfinity and the Truck Series races are also going to be exciting as well.
I'm going to talk about the week that will be before I talk about the week that was. Looking forward on the schedule, it's nice that Dover is the cutoff for this round, a 1 mile high bank track. There's really no advantage for anybody.
Yeah.
If you've run well there in the past, once again, you've talked about Jimmy Johnson, 11-time winner there. Last year, when I went to Dover, he caused the big wreck and was out of the race. So anything can happen on any given night. Going to the next cutoff race at Kansas, 1.5 miles, very fast. That caters to some of the guys. There is an advantage there. And then past that, Phoenix. We already know there's 3 drivers at Phoenix that have a distinct advantage. Harvick, Kenseth, Newman.
Yeah.
Those are the guys to watch. And you could throw Jimmy Johnson into that mix as well. Very astute when it comes to driving Phoenix. But having the cutoff race at Dover makes it even money across the board.
Yeah.
I think on the Xfinity, you're going to see some real hard-nosed racing. You might see one of these sleepers come up huge. On the Truck Series, I know they are in Las Vegas. Again, 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
A lot of speed. You're going to carry a lot into the corners. It's going to come down, I think, to fuel mileage. You're not going to see someone blaze out ahead by 8-9 seconds and walk away with that race. You're going to watch a lot of these guys worry about, okay, can I make it these last 18 laps on a tank that says to me I can only carry 15 laps?
Yeah.
That race is going to come down to fuel mileage. The week that is going to be interesting. As far as the week that was, I said I wouldn't do it. I lied. Next time you want to wreck somebody and you're a championship contender, maybe think about not taking yourself out of the championship contenders. You idiot, Austin Dillon. Anything else?
So for all the race fans, make sure you follow me on NASCAR IndyCar Central. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So Instagram, we are at NASCAR Indy, and then Instagram, we are at NASCAR IndyCar. So check us out. We'll post up news, standings, results of this past races, and yeah, it's very interesting. If you're a NASCAR fan, please check us out. You won't be disappointed.
Don't forget also to subscribe to the YouTube channel, C&J Speedway Review. You can get these almost immediately right after Eddie does his magic and makes us look better than anyone else could ever make us look. Don't tell him I said that. I can see him in the corner. Guys, don't forget also the best way to support the show is go to www.lokijabroni.com. We have all our affiliates up there, whether you are a book reader, music lover, you like coolers, you want tickets. We have affiliates that will help you find exactly what you need, and those affiliates will kick back just a little bit to help with the production costs. Once again, that's www.lokijabroni.com. I'm sure that the next time Corey's looking for some great NASCAR gear, he can go through Amazon, through lokijabroni.com, and he will be recycling his money, much like I do. If you're a movie fan, we have Fandango.
Yep.
We have Mars Hydro. If you are a music freak, we have Zounds. Hope I put enough Z's in there.
Yeah.
Lots of great affiliates for you to choose from. We're constantly adding new affiliates all the time. We're trying to make this as wonderful and a one-stop shopping place for you to go to. And again, we'll try for NASCAR again. I don't know why they don't want us, but maybe with the new C&J Speedway Review, NASCAR will look kindly upon us and won't put us into the wall like Austin freaking Dillon, that son of a... Anyway, By the way, your girlfriend's first race, how'd she enjoy it?
She enjoyed it really well. I was actually happy that her favorite driver ended up winning. And yes, guys, for those of you guys don't know, her favorite driver is Christopher Bell. And actually, a little bit of a short story. So we were watching the Xfinity qualifying one time. This was at like Iowa back in June. So we were watching, and long story short, she ends up pointing at one driver and says, "Oh, who's that kid right there?" I said, "Oh, that's Christopher Bell. He races for this team, blah, 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 blah." So then she says, "Oh, can you check and see if he's single?" And I said, to answer that question, no, but I can actually tell you about his racing stats whatsoever. But yeah, so she had the Christopher Bell gear on, and I had the 51 shirt on, the Rowdy Burns whatsoever. Also, another quick story. So, quick impression. I was walking upstairs to my seats up in the grandstands. So, I'm looking towards the right-hand side of the seats. So there's this guy that's looking at me, right? So he's looking at me, not just like my face, whatever, but he's looking down on the shirt. So he notices that I have the Rowdy Burns shirt on. So he goes out and says, hey, dude, I really like your shirt. And I said, thanks. Have you ever seen the movie Days of Thunder? He says, kind of. So I told him, I said, this is the reason why I watched this movie is because of this guy.
Kind of?
Yeah.
How do you kind of watch Days of Thunder?
I was going to question him on that, but
it's like saying I'm kind of American.
Right.
I don't get it.
I mean, I told him, I said, dude, all I could just tell you is Days of Thunder is like my all-time favorite NASCAR movie, without a doubt. Like, literally.
Oh, yeah. Easily. 2 questions before we close out. I gave you 2 requests. I want to see if you completed either of them. 1, did you buy your girlfriend any Harvick gear?
No.
Number 2, did you buy me a Christopher Bell shirt?
I was unable to.
You're fired again. What the hell am I paying you for?
Oh.
We gotta get Eddie some race car gear eventually. He'll love it.
If he gets into it.
He will. As the more he produces this and listens, the more he will get ingrained. You know what he's gonna like?
What's up?
Because we missed it. Next season, when we do the 2 road courses, he's gonna listen and know about the right-hand turn.
Yeah.
Because if I have to hear when they turn right, then I remind him, he doesn't watch.
Right.
But we love Ed. He does great things for us, and we're just glad to have him. He is the genius behind the geniuses.
Yes.
So thank you again, Corey, for all your insight. And we will be back next Wednesday talking about Dover and Las Vegas and looking ahead to the next round of championship racing.
Should be very interesting. I can't wait.
I hope so. For Corey Huffnagel, my name is Chris Burns from the Logan Jabroni Show. We will see you next week.
Good night.